Hi, welcome to Overthinking Entrepreneur. I'm Megan, and I've had a successful online business for a few years now, and I think I overthought probably about 90% of my decisions along the way. Honestly, I just overthought whether I should say 90% or pretty much every decision in this intro. So if you find that relatable, you are definitely in the right place. In this podcast, I will help you get out of overthinking and into action so that your online business can finally start growing. Hi, guys. I'm so excited for this episode, which is what I think overthinkers need to know about AI. And I've been wanting to do this one for, well, basically since I brought my podcast back from hiatus, because during my hiatus is when I shifted from not really wanting much to do with AI, not being impressed with what I would get from it, to learning to use it differently and realizing what an incredible tool it can be, especially if you are someone who overthinks, someone who struggles to get as much done as you want to. And I really just want to kind of tell you all the things that I think that you should know. So, if you have already been using and loving AI a lot, you probably aren't going to learn anything new here. You might. I don't, who knows? Who knows what all you know about it? But if you are someone who's maybe started dabbling, you're relatively new to it, or if you're still in that place of, I don't even know if I want to use this, I don't know how I feel about it, or when I try and use it, I just get garbage, then I think you're really going to like this episode. So I have a lot to cover today, so let's just go ahead and dive on in and talk about what I think overthinkers need to know about AI, especially if you've been resistant to using it. So I was really resistant to using it myself in the beginning. I've talked about this a little bit, so I won't go too deep into my own story with it here. But when it first came out, I was kind of freaked out by it. I thought it was weird. And I still have some of these fears of like people taking it too far and the whole world of like online business becoming artificial. And, there's already so much inauthenticity in the world of online business, and then to just hand people this tool that makes it even easier for them to not put in the work and just now have this tool do it for them. And I had a lot of resistance to the idea, and I still feel that way to an extent. I still think that there are some people that in my opinion are taking it too far and doing way too much with the AI. And I think that it can amplify you and allow you to do more. But I personally think there's a line of like, okay, if you can't touch any part of something in your business and you're going to hand the whole thing to AI, maybe it just shouldn't be in your business. Those are my personal thoughts. Like, and we're going to that's going to be a theme of this episode, is that I'm not going to present to you what is right or wrong for everyone. I'm going to present you what is right or wrong for me, how I've come to look at it, and encourage you to look at it for what's right and wrong for you, because it's brand new and it's a lot and it's changing really fast. It's a lot to keep up with. And so, I had a lot of fears that we were going to turn into this, like world where no one's really, it's just like everyone's AI talking to each other, trying to make sales. And I'm like, this is weird. I don't know about all of this. And so I'm glad to say that it has not escalated that quickly. And I think there are some people out there that are trying the whole use AI for everything in your business and not seeing a whole lot of success. I'm sure some people are making it work. I'm not saying that no one is, but I have been pleasantly surprised to see that even if people try to do that, it's not really working because there's no human element, there's no connection. And so I think that's a big part of succeeding in the online business world, especially as a personal brand, which is who I work with. I think it's different if you have a bigger, like a company that you're starting. But if you're just one human with a personal brand, I think people want that to be personal. And that is what scared me a little bit, was that people were going to lose their uniqueness and authenticity. And I've been happy to see, not that I want anyone to like not succeed. I want us all to succeed as long as you're doing it for the right reasons and, have a good heart behind what you're doing. But the people that are really trying to take the shortcuts too far, I've noticed it's not really working. So that's been good for me to see that people can still discern, even if they don't realize that it's AI, they can still tell something's not right and they're not connecting with it. So I am not as worried as I was at first about like AI taking over and all of these new like garbage businesses popping up that are completely fueled by AI. And, they're popping up, but they're not really going anywhere for the most part. So that's made me feel a little bit better. I do still have a lot of reservations. And, one thing that I think you should decide for yourself is disclosing your use of AI. And there's certain, like, if you some social media platforms want you to say that you've used AI, or like if an image is AI. So, be mindful of those rules. But in terms of your own usage and like, do you want to talk about it? Some people get really freaked out trying to hide. And I'm actually going to talk to you about some of the ways people can tell that you wrote something with AI if you want to remove those so it's not as obvious. But I am not saying that you have to hide it or that you have to be ashamed of it. I think it's one of those things that you decide for yourself. So some people are very loud and proud. I use AI for all kinds of things. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think it's wonderful. And then there's some people that completely just won't even touch it. And then there's some people that use it but don't want people to know that they're using it, or they don't want it to look like it came from AI. And then there's people that I think are kind of in the sweet spot, which is where I'm trying to land. I don't know if I'm nailing it fully yet, but where they openly use AI, but then also will talk about which areas they won't use AI. Like there's someone that I follow who's a pretty big name in the industry, and she's really, really embraced ChatGPT and talked about it a ton. But she always talks about the fact that she still writes her own content. She writes her own emails. She writes, like, if you get a reply, it's from her. She doesn't use AI for that stuff. There's a ton that she uses it for and talks about and teaches, but if something's written, it was her. And so there's lots of different ways that you can kind of land on this spectrum. And like I said, I don't think it's something that you need to be ashamed of using as long as you're using it in the right way, which is what we're really going to be covering in this episode, or at least what I think is the right way to use it. And again, you need to decide that for yourself. The environmental impacts, that's something that I still wrestle with, that I don't have a good answer for. I think it should be acknowledged. I don't think we should bury our head in the sand about it, but I don't have a good answer for it. It does have a large environmental impact. My thoughts are that I use it intentionally. I'm not going to go like the data shows that a search in something like ChatGPT uses a lot more environmental resources than like a Google search. Now, the tricky part with that is you can barely Google search without Google forcing you into their AI these days, right? Like it's very hard. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to open my mind to it a little bit more, because I still have some reservations around it. There's still things that I think are a little bit iffy around it. But at the same time, it's not going anywhere. And me choosing to not use it myself is not going to slow down the progress. It's not going to slow down the rest of the world using it. And so it sort of became a thing where I was like, okay. And I wasn't trying to like, make a point like ChatGPT doesn't care if I'm, OpenAI, the company doesn't care if I'm using it or not. They just care about overall users. But for a while, I was just sort of, I think from like a moral place, or I've also been hearing a lot of really interesting conversations about how women in particular are more resistant to the use of these AI tools. And of course, this is a generalization, right? There's always, always, always exceptions. But generally speaking, a lot of people who are way more involved in the AI training world and have worked with a lot of people have noticed that men on average are happy to use the tools and say, "Oh, this can make my life easier." Absolutely. How do I use it? Let me do it. Women, we get in our heads and we say, "Well, that feels like cheating. That feels like a shortcut. That feels wrong. I think I need to do it the hard way. I think if I don't suffer with my blood, sweat, and tears, it's not worth it." And just kind of all of these interesting attitudes about the use of tools in the workplace. And we see this in like corporate America too, right? And not just America, corporate, wherever, right? We see these kind of differences. And again, not across the board, right? Always exceptions. No one come for me here, but it's very interesting. And I was hearing a lot about that. And I was like, wow, that does really sound a lot like kind of how I feel about it. And then the other thing that I was hearing is that, and it makes perfect sense, these models, they're called language learning models. They're learning all the time. They're learning through conversations. They did a ton of testing to get it ready, but this final stage of development is happening right now with the people who are actually using it. And it's learning from the conversations. And just FYI, if you have a paid account, you can turn off so that it won't use your data if that's something that you're worried about. Like I have fed it some of my, like workbooks and things that I've created. So I have that turned off so that it cannot then take my workbook and give it to someone else, but anyway, the more that female voices are using it, the more it will learn the ways that we want to use it and the ways that we want to speak to it, and just kind of giving that input. Because if a lot of the women step back and say, I don't know how I feel about this, men are going to shape the tool, and it's not going to be as useful for women who then want to use it in the different ways that we want to use it. And I thought that was really interesting too. So those are kind of some of the things that started to shift my perspective around it. And then the biggest one that shifted my perspective was realizing all the different things it can do that aren't just writing for you. That's what I was really seeing in the beginning, was people who I had been on their email list for years, and all of a sudden I was getting emails that didn't sound a thing like them. People who I'd been following on social media for a long time making all these posts that I could tell they hadn't written. And that was what was really scaring me. And what really kind of scares me with just with what I do and what my business is, because so many people want a shortcut and they want you to just tell them what to do. And ChatGPT will do that. And I'm going to, for the record, I've chosen ChatGPT as the one that I'm using. So most of what I'm talking about here will apply to all the different AI tools. Don't think that it's just ChatGPT specific. That's just the one that has kind of solidified itself in my brain that I tend to say. But um, I've had years where I work with a lot of beginners and a lot of people that are getting started. And a lot of people just don't want to put in the hard work to understand their ideal client, to learn how to write content, to learn how they just think it's hard and they just kind of shut down. And it scares me that there is now a tool that will say, come on over here, I'll do it for you. And the over reliance of people, I think you should learn to do it yourself before you lean into a tool. And especially when it comes to like writing and a lot of these big things. So it does scare me that a lot of people are going to use it kind of on both sides of the coin. Some people are going to use it like intentionally saying, oh, good, this will make my life so easy. I'm just going to do this and I don't have to do any work. And then also some people who have good intentions but don't really know what to do and have decided to try using ChatGPT for business. And then it cheers you on and says you're the best ever. And yeah, girl, you got this. And like just going down the rabbit hole of like wasting a ton of time with advice from a AI tool that doesn't know them and doesn't know their business and doesn't get them there. So I have lots of thoughts around it, and that's part of why I want to do this episode is because if you aren't learning about it and the right way to use it and thinking critically about it, you could accidentally kind of go down the wrong road with it. So anyway, back to what I was saying. The biggest thing was the different ways that you can use it. I was just seeing people have it write crappy things for them that weren't interesting, that were very generic, that, didn't connect or really cause any results. And I was like, what is happening? I don't like this. I hate it. And I tried it. I've talked about this. I like to try things myself before I just write them off. So I tried it. And again, I got a bunch of crappy posts that sounded terrible. And a lot of people would say, well, I have it write it for me. And then I rewrite it and it saves me time. And I tried that. It did not save me time. I can just write myself faster than rewriting something that it wrote for me. I have found, especially those early days when I was trying and I hadn't trained it at all, which we'll get to in a minute. So I was like, I don't find this useful. It's not saving me time. I have a lot of just like moral reservations around it. I'm not going to touch it. And so I went that way for a while. And then I started hearing different ways people were using it. And I started hearing about the concept of custom GPTs, which are essentially tools that you can build within ChatGPT. And I assume all the different platforms have their version of this. I don't know what they call it, but you can build custom GPTs for yourself and you can also share them. And I've started dabbling with creating them and sharing them to my members and my customers. And it's been so great because I can help kind of give some of that guidance. So I started opening my mind to more things that AI could do that weren't just creating content for you. And that's when I was like, oh, this is really cool. Oh, I'm starting to see a little bit more now. And then a membership that I belong to did a week that was focused on AI. And I decided to just embrace it and say, this isn't going anywhere and I'm starting to open my mind to it a little bit more. Maybe I should give this a try and like go all in and see what happens. And that was kind of a turning point week for me. And then I started hearing more and more and I started actively listening to different ways people were using it, playing around with it myself. I started using it when I was developing my summer camps that I did over the summer, which was a huge project. And truly, I don't know if I could have gotten it done without the help of ChatGPT, just to be perfectly honest with you. And it didn't do a lot of the work for me in the sense you might be thinking, but for example, when we did a color war week during summer camp where I divided them up into teams and then I took some typical summer camp activities and kind of adapted them for business. And that was the color war tasks. I've never been to summer camp myself. And so I could have gone to Google and started typing in, summer camp tasks. But what I did was in the ChatGPT where I was working on it in that chat, I basically said, can you help me give me a list of some typical summer camp activities and then also some suggestions of how these could be adapted for the color war. Basically, I gave it more information than that. You really need to be detailed when you're asking your questions if you want good responses. But anyway, it saved me a ton of time. And I don't know that I actually used any of its direct suggestions, but the events that it gave me, some of the ways that it got my wheels turning to where I was like, it saved me a ton of time in that process than if I had been trying to do that without it. So that's another reason when it really started to click for me. And I started using it to make decisions, which blew my mind because you guys know I'm an overthinker and I struggle to make decisions, and so do many of you. And more things. And eventually I was like, okay, I get it now. This is really cool. My eyes have been opened and I'm embracing it a bit more. Like I said, now I do still I'm very intentional about what I use it for because of the environmental impacts and just because of I don't want my brain to just like completely be unable to think for itself. Like I think that there are some people that don't do anything without ChatGPT now, and I'm like, okay, that's not going to be good in like 10 years. Probably even sooner than that. I'm trying to be really mindful of how can I use this as a tool, but not decide that I never have to think for myself anymore. I think that's a really slippery slope. The other thing is that just knowing the environmental impacts and everything with where we're at right now, and I have a lot of hope that they're going to be able to develop ways to lessen the environmental impacts. This is still a really new technology. And I think even AI itself is probably working on the problem to solve. Like, I think it's probably going to get better, but we don't know that for sure. So right now, I'm trying to be really mindful. And honestly, this is probably how I'll keep using it forever. I'm not going to go to ChatGPT to ask a question that I could easily Google search or that I could easily put into my calculator. If I need to know 25 times 67, I am not going to open ChatGPT and waste all of those resources on something that simple. I'm going to open my phone calculator. I'm going to do it in my head. So I try to be really mindful of like I'm not asking it for everything and I'm not asking it for things that could easily be found using a different tool. Okay, there's some of my kind of disclaimer, my thoughts, my journey about all of it. Now, let's go into what I really want to walk you through. And I have a lot that I want to tell you. So I'm going to try not to make this the longest episode in the world, but I do have a lot that I want to tell you about it too. So let's start with what it can do beyond just writing for you. And this is by no means a comprehensive list. I have not scratched the surface of all the different things it can do, I'm sure. But these are some of the things that I have really been loving and that I think as overthinkers, you would probably love as well. So it can help you talk things out. So if you're someone that really likes to talk things out with other people to make decisions and you don't always want to be bothering other people with that, or if you're like me and oftentimes this is happening at like 1 a.m. and other people are sleeping, guess who's awake? ChatGPT. And it's happy to talk things out with you. So I have found this helpful in a few different ways. I have found that sometimes I sit at my computer and I'm just trying. Now, I am diagnosed ADHD, and so if you are, you'll relate to this. But I think many people relate to issues with executive dysfunction these days and just like getting started. We're also burned out at all times with just the constant stream of news and things we have to do and whatever. So I think it's very common to be like sitting at your computer or sitting on your phone, wherever you work from, trying to start on something and just not getting started. And I don't know about you guys, but I have found for me, if I can talk to someone, it's like my brain turns on. Like it's very interesting. I have noticed this like when I start talking to record this podcast, or if I do a video, there's sometimes that I'm kind of tired. And then once I start talking, I'm good. Or even I'll be sitting there trying to work and then maybe I'll ask a question. I like to bounce ideas off of my community manager is wonderful and lets me bounce ideas off of her. And then also I have a group chat for my membership and I'll bounce ideas off of them sometimes too. And I have just noticed for myself that there'll be times I'm sitting there just staring and trying to get started and getting nowhere. And if I start talking to someone else about what I'm trying to decide or what I'm trying to work on, it's like my brain turns on and I can actually start working. I might sound really weird if none of you relate to this. I don't know. But if you do relate to that, try it. When you're sitting there just staring at the blank screen and getting nowhere, if you open up a chat and just start talking to ChatGPT, I found that it works kind of that same way. I can do the same things that I would say to a human without having to burden a human with always having to listen to my nonsense. And without it, it doesn't matter what time of day it is. So if you find it really helpful to talk things out, try talking things out with ChatGPT. It's awesome. Another thing that it can really help you with is brainstorming. This is one of my favorite uses. I think it's such a great tool when it comes to brainstorming, and you can get much better answers than something like just Google. It depends on what it is. But even if I go back to that summer camp example, right? I could go to Google and type in, and actually, I think I did start here now that I'm thinking back. Or, Pinterest or wherever, and just type typical summer camp color war activities. And I got some lists of things. a lot of the same things. A lot of the resources weren't all that helpful. Like, there's the SEO that comes into play. It wasn't giving me exactly what I was looking for. I could have made it work, but it would have taken me probably a couple hours to really seek out everything that I was looking for. Versus when I went to ChatGPT and I could say, hey, I'm working on this summer camp. Here's who it's for. And like, I didn't do this in the question because I'd already been talking to it about summer camp, but I would have. I'm working on this summer camp. It's business summer camp. Here's how it works. Here's what they're going to be doing. We're going to be doing this color war. Can you provide me a list of typical color war activities and then some suggestions of how they could be adapted? And what I got from that was night and day from what I got from my Google search. So when you're trying to brainstorm, you always want to ask yourself, can I just do this in Google or wherever? And if you can, just do it there. But a lot of times the brainstorming is much better when you come in and do it in something like ChatGPT. So the more information you can give it, the better it can do. And then you can go back and forth with it. That's the other thing that I like. You can't really talk to Google. You can't say, no, that wasn't right. Like when Google gave me my first results, I couldn't really say, no, that's not what I want. But with ChatGPT, I could say, no, those aren't what I want. I want more like this. And it'll come back with more answers. And you can kind of keep going back and forth and refining. So it's really great to help you kind of brainstorm and narrow things down like that. It can also help you make decisions. So sometimes it's just talking it out. Another thing that I have been doing that has been so helpful is when I have a couple options I'm trying to decide between, and I figured this out a while ago. I actually think I talked about this on the podcast in the past, but a lot of times I'm just looking at two abstract options, trying to decide which one's better, and it's very hard. And so I found if I take it a step further and actually start mapping out both of the options, it becomes more clear to me which one I like. And I found ChatGPT can do this really great. So let's say, okay, we'll go back to summer camp. I'm going to use summer camp a lot because I used it to create and make a lot of these decisions. So I had a regular tier of summer camp and then a VIP tier of summer camp. And I was trying to decide what I wanted included in both and what should the different options look like. And, how should I do this? And so I was talking to ChatGPT about, here's where I'm at. I want to have these two options. Here's kind of what I'm thinking, but I'm not totally sure. Can you lay out a few options for me of how this could work so I can choose? Or same thing when I was trying to decide how many points they would have to earn in summer camp to unlock the t-shirt. I said, hey, I'm trying to decide how many points there should be. Like, here's how this is all going to work. Can you give me a few options? And it was like, you could do this, you could do this, you could do that. And when I look at the options, it becomes very clear to me which one I like. Or sometimes it's like, oh, let's do that from this option and that from this option. But having it lay out the options for you is very helpful. It can also do things that you would hire an assistant to do. So, and I think this is a good way of looking at it, hiring a virtual assistant, hiring someone to help your business. So we're not going to let it replace you. We're not going to let it make the decisions, but those little tedious tasks that you could pay someone else to do, it can do those for you. So I think I've already shared this, but just another example of this. Every month I write content prompts and I typically go through and write them out and then arrange them into the calendar. And I hate arranging them into the calendar. It takes me forever. It takes almost as long as writing the prompts because I just get in my head and overthink it. And it's like a whole thing. So I have found that actually ChatGPT can do that for me. I can give it the prompts and tell them how I want arranged and it will do it. The same as if I paid an assistant to do it. So I still write the prompts. I'm still the creative force behind it. I'm telling it what to do, but it's executing that task for me. Same thing like with this podcast. It helps me a bit with some of the show notes. It helps me, go through the transcripts and pick out some good bullet points that should be in the show notes. Those kind of things that I could pay another human to do, but it's been really great to have ChatGPT do it for me. It can also help you remember things or spot patterns. I guess kind of analyze data might be a good overhead name for this. So let's say that you're working on a big project and there's lots of different factors involved in it. It's really easy for your human brain to forget about parts of it or forget deadlines or forget what you had already worked on or what you already decided. ChatGPT remembers that stuff. It doesn't have the human brain element. So as you're going throughout the process, it can remind you of something that you might be forgetting about, or it can spot patterns for you that you're not noticing because you're too close to your business. It can look at, and I don't feed it a lot of numbers personally. I think some people do to have it analyze data in that sense, but I think it can also help you find those patterns and help you pull things together and pull ideas out of what you're already doing or read through, like I said, I can record a whole podcast episode, give it the transcript of what I said, and it can pull out a really great title. It can pull out the show notes. It can pull out, and it all came from me. This is all my original content. ChatGPT didn't do this part, but I could, in theory, hire an assistant for this, record the episode, send it to them, have them listen, have them do the show notes, have them, all that stuff. ChatGPT can do it for me instead. It can do graphics and even photos. Now, I have mixed thoughts on the whole AI photos thing, but it can definitely do graphics, which is really cool. If you're someone like me who gets really stressed out in Canva, sometimes I enjoy playing in Canva. I especially like taking my little dino and dressing him in silly outfits and things like that. But fonts and spacing and colors and all of that, I get overwhelmed and I don't have a good eye for it. And so it can be really a quick way. Now, I think if you're doing like a bigger project, I think you'd probably want to hire a human. I think you'd want to hire a graphic designer who can really understand what you're doing. But for little one off, like I just want to create this little one thing, it can make those for you. And then, like I said, it can even do AI photos now. There's some different tools where you can upload photos of yourself and then it can create a little like AI clone of you and generate all these different images of you. Now, I have some mixed thoughts on this. I think, first of all, we can tell. I think there's a lot of people that seem to think they look really realistic and no one knows. We know, girl, we know. Okay. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think it just depends on how you're using it. I think if you're trying to pretend like it's a real photo, I find that irritating because, like, we know. And I think if you're using it on social media, these are my personal thoughts. I think different people have different thoughts on social media. And I also think it depends on your brand. Like some social media than others. But my personal thoughts are for something like social media, just take a selfie, just take a photo. No one cares if your hair is perfect. No one cares if your roots are showing. Like they just don't. Okay. You are self conscious about this stuff. No one else notices or cares. On social media, I think you should just be yourself and what you really look like. Where I think AI photos could have a good place would be something like your website in place of where you would get a professional photo shoot done. Because let's be real, that's not what I look like on a daily basis, right? If I'm going to go get my hair done, get my makeup done, rent out a place to take photos, hire a photographer, and then they're going to go through and edit them all, those don't really reflect the real me in the same way, right? So my personal thoughts are I'm okay with AI photos on something like a website or in place of where you would have done professional taken photos anyway. But for social media, I think it's kind of silly and overkill. And like, I would say just use yourself. Unless it's like for a specific, like, I think there can be a time and place. Like, if it really ties into what you're posting about, okay. But just for like day to day, like if you're just embarrassed because you don't have makeup on, I encourage you to work through that and just take the makeup free selfie personally. Or start doing photo shoot days where you can do your makeup once, take a bunch of photos and be done with it. That's my thoughts on it. Okay, and then custom GPTs, like I mentioned, that's another really cool thing that you can do. So you can create these. It's basically like you create a custom set of instructions within ChatGPT. So you open it up and you can go to this GPT and it already knows everything that you taught it to do. So for example, let's talk about my podcast show notes. I have not created a GPT for that yet. So every time that I want to do it, I have to go into just like a regular ChatGPT chat and then I have to say, "Hey, I need some help with my podcast. Here's what I'm looking for." And I have to type out and give it instructions and information above and beyond each time. If I were to create a GPT, what I would do is take one time where I set up all those instructions, get it programmed and save it. And then the next time that I have an episode, I open the GPT and it will say, "Hey, give me your episode. I'm ready," because it already knows what I want it to do. It already has those instructions inherently built in. I don't have to re-give those instructions every time. It's kind of like what creating a GPT does. Um, so that's another really great possibility. You can make them for yourself to speed up your own tasks, things that you do repeatedly. And like I said, you also, I will mention you need a paid ChatGPT account in order to create the GPTs. And then if you create a custom GPT in ChatGPT, someone cannot use it in Gemini or somewhere else. It's solely for the platform that you've created it for. So those are some limitations there, but it's very cool. And you can create them for yourself and you can also create and give them to your clients or even sell them to your clients, depending on what's involved with it. Now, you do want to be mindful. You want to make sure you fully understand, like they're going to keep access to it forever when you give it to them. So, make sure you're pricing appropriately, make sure, lots of different things. This isn't an episode where we're going to dive into that, but it's extremely cool. If you find that your clients struggle with implementation, the GPTs are really great for that. And that's where I'm really dabbling most with them is that I have so many great tools and resources and programs that I've created, but sometimes it's getting people to follow through and complete them that can really be the tricky part. And I am finding that if I can create GPTs that walk them through it, they're so much more likely. And it makes perfect sense. I mean, even for myself, my business reset workbook, which I'm working on right now, I'm creating By the way, stay tuned. Make sure you're on my email list if you feel like your business could use a reset because next week I'm doing this business reset week. And I took my business reset workbook, which is like a 36-page beast. It's so good. There's so much good stuff in there, but it's a 36-page PDF. Like it's intense. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I would never complete it as a client. I would not sit down and go through this 36-page PDF. I just wouldn't. So, what I'm doing is building a GPT and I gave it the workbook so that it knows and then it walks you through everything in the workbook, but it enhances and it's like you have me going through the workbook with you. It's taking me a long time to create this GPT because I am being really thorough. So I did a bunch of tweaks and a bunch of, here's how I want it to work. And now I'm going through it step by step, question by question and saying, here, what if instead you offer this guidance? Or what if you remind them of what they said here? Or what if here you help them brainstorm this? And so I'm really, really fine-tune tweaking like every single question, but I'm so excited about how it's turning out. But we're going to be going through a business reset week next week. And so instead of me saying, hey, here's this massive PDF that you're probably never going to complete, or that you get through and you still feel confused because what do I do with all of this? Now you can sit down and talk it out. It's going to be like you're talking, kind of like you're talking to me because it sounds a lot like me because of the way that I've trained it. But it's going to guide you through the process and it's going to help you brainstorm every step of the way. And it's going to help you put together your answers so that you don't get to the end and say, okay, what do I do with this? So I'm really excited about that. And like I said, it's just to help with the implementations. I mean, there's lots of ways you can do it, but this is what I'm really leaning into is to help people with the implementation because that's always been a big struggle in my business. So, if there's anywhere that your people really struggle to implement or remember the things that you said, you might want to consider trying out some custom GPTs that could help them. Okay, now on to just some odds and ends things that I want you to know. So, the first thing, and I've touched on this a bit, hinted at it, but your input really matters. If you sell earrings and you go in there and you say, I sell earrings, can you help me write a good social media post? You're going to get absolute garbage. I mean, maybe not absolute garbage. That's like a broad enough request. It might be okay, but it's not going to be what you want. It's not going to move your business forward. It's not going to feel personal. It's not going to connect. It's just going to be like the type of post that I saw in the beginning and said, "Oh, this is terrible." So instead, you would want to go in there and say, I sell earrings that I hand make myself, and they are very story driven and based on people's favorite things or meaningful connections to them. I started out by making earrings with my mom's favorite flower after she passed, and it felt like she was with me. And then that expanded to people wanting earrings that represented their favorite pet and their favorite books and their favorite movies. And it's really grown from there. So, my ideal client doesn't just want a cute pair of earrings, they want earrings that have a story that they have a connection to. Can you help me write a post about this new pair of earrings that I'm creating that is based off of this book series or whatever? Do you see how different the content is probably going to be? I should have done this experiment so I could even show you how different it would be, but you can do that experiment for yourself. So you need to teach it about yourself. You need to train your AI. You can't just go in there, give it a 2 sentence question and expect to get really good results. You need to tell it about yourself. You need to tell it about your business. You need to tell it about your ideal client. You need to tell it about what you sell. You need to tell it about what sets your brand apart from other brands out there. You need to give it all of this information. And then you also need to train it on how you speak and your voice. And there's so many ways that you can do this. I would honestly suggest, I mean, the other cool thing, and actually this is later on my list, I'll jump the gun and tell you right now. If you don't know how to do something, you can ask it. You can ask it what to do. So you could go in there and say, I want to help you understand my voice better and how I speak. What information do you need from me to be able to do that? And it'll probably walk you through it. There's also a lot of people out there that are selling things that can help you find your brand voice. And there's probably a lot of free resources that can help you do that too. I went through one as part of that AI week that I did in the membership that I'm in, so I can't share it. It's her proprietary process that I went through to kind of find my brand voice and to teach it. But there's lots of different things out there, and I can help you find one if you need one. But make sure that you're training your AI and understanding that the input matters. The less you give it, like the garbage in, garbage out thing, it really applies here. The less information, the more generic, the more broad that you give it, the worse the information's going to be. You need to really take the time to train your AI up front. Tell it your voice, tell it about your business, tell it what you do, train it on how you speak. You can even send it samples of things that you have written so that it can analyze them and get to know you better. It's still going to be an ongoing process. And the thing that you want to understand is that it will improve over time. It's always learning and it's learning you better. And so each time I'm at a place now, I've been using it long enough that if I do have it write something for me, I actually can tweak it and have it be faster within reason. It depends what it is. If it's like a story from my heart, I don't want it to start that, and that wouldn't be faster. But if it's like instructions for something, if it's a podcast show notes where it can pull from the words that it heard me speak, well, that read that I spoke, I guess, because I give it a transcript. But anyway, when it's using my own words, like I don't have to tweak that as much these days because I've been working with it for so long. And something that I do that's helped a ton is anytime it helps me write something and then when I change it, I send back my final version. I'll say, here's the version of the email that I actually sent. Here's what I actually wrote. Here's the show notes that I actually published. Please study them so that next time you can make it sound even more like this. And so each time I'm always sending it back and telling it, study this, learn this. Here you go. Here you go. This is me. This is how I actually sound, so that it's getting better and better over time. May there come a day where it writes something and I'm like, wow, that actually does sound like me. Maybe. I've heard people say that, and that'll be really cool if I reach that day, but I am not there yet. Um, but because I've trained it and because I keep sending back more and more of my own work for it to learn from, it's improving and it's getting better. And then remember, your input makes a huge difference. So asking a short generic question is going to get a really generic answer. Being very specific about what you're looking for helps. And don't be afraid to tell it, that's not what I want. You can really give it more guidance. So be mindful of that too. Next thing, taking some time to create systems can save you a ton over time. So I was a little bit, it wasn't that I didn't want to do this or that I didn't believe it. It was more so just, I don't have time to sit down and train it. I don't have time to sit down and do all of this. And I get it. And there are certain times, certain months, certain weeks where you really don't have time to do that. But what I have found is that it's really worth it to sit down and teach it at least those things you do every week, those things that you do over and over. I do a podcast every week. So creating that GPT so that it's ready to help me with the podcast and I don't have to type in instructions would be really worth my time. I should probably do that today. I probably will. So little things like that, taking the time to create your systems, have it figure out what it is that you want is really worth it because it'll speed up everything after that. But it does take a lot of time up front to kind of find the right set of instructions, to find the right way to ask it this question, to find what you want it to do, but it's worth it. Okay, like I just touched on, I jumped the gun a little bit in my list, but if you aren't sure how to do something, or even if it can do something, ask it. You can ask ChatGPT. You can just say, hey, I want this done. Is this something you can help me with? Or what are the different ways that you could help me with this? Or something, like I said, the voice, like, hey, I want you to help me, or I want you to study my voice. What can I give you to help you do that? I ask it this all the time. So I'll ask, can you do this? What are the different ways you could help me with this? Or what do you need from me to be able to do this? Or I will also say something like, here's what I want to do. What are the options? What are the different ways that we could do this? And it will give you those answers. So when in doubt, if you're not quite sure how to do something, that's a great place. Now, I would say if you're completely unfamiliar with ChatGPT, I'd probably watch some trainings or find some other resources first. But once you're in there, when there's those little things that you're not sure if it can do or how to do it, this is a really great way to get a quick answer and to have it, tell you exactly what it needs. Okay, now let's talk about some of the negatives, maybe just say limitations, just some things that I want you to be aware of and some things to watch out for. ChatGPT is going to tell you that you are the bee's knees and that everything you do is amazing and the best ever and your people are going to love it and this is brilliant and holy cow, it's the best. And I kind of like this. I like who doesn't like the validation, right? But I know that it's programmed to do that. And I know that just because it said that, it doesn't mean this is the best idea ever. So I really want you to keep this in mind, that it's inherently programmed to tell you you're amazing, and it's going to keep doing that even if what you said is awful. Okay. So don't just listen to everything ChatGPT says and fall down the flattery rabbit hole of well, it said it was amazing, so this is great, I'm just going to run with it. Make sure you are running the show. Make sure that you are asking yourself, do I think this is amazing? Just because ChatGPT is telling me it's amazing, do I think it's amazing? I know myself, I know my people, I know my business. Is this right? Is this genuinely amazing? And if not, you got to just ignore ChatGPT because it's inherently programmed to tell you that everything you do is amazing. I think that's a good thing. Like I said, I think we all need a little validation every now and then, but you just really want to remember that it's going to tell you it's amazing whether it is or not. And ChatGPT does not have the capability. Remember that most of what it's saying to you, it's pulling from other resources. It's going out and finding other things on the internet. It's finding things about someone else's business. It doesn't really have the capability to decide if something is the right choice for you the same way that you do and that a human does. So remember that it will tell you things and it will tell you that it's amazing and that it's the right choice, but it may or may not be. Okay. That's still up to you. You can't outsource that part. You need to run the show when it comes to what you're having it help you with. The next thing you need to know is that it can straight up lie and make things up. Okay. It just can. It can give you completely wrong information. I did not know this early. Like, I knew to an extent that it could give incorrect stats and numbers and those kind of things. It can straight up make those up to just fit whatever it's trying to tell you. Please, if you are ever doing any sort of like research that you're going to then turn around and present as facts, verify it yourself. ChatGPT can pull numbers out of its butt to tell you, here you go, here's some numbers that support what you're trying to talk about. They may not be correct in the slightest. Okay. It's really important that you fact check everything. That, like, if you're having it find facts, like, I haven't really used it in this way personally, but if you are, remember that it may or may not be true. And it's your responsibility to figure that out. You can't go out saying blah, 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 blah. And then when people say that's not right, you say, well, I don't know, ChatGPT told me that. I would lose respect for you as a business owner. Okay. You, as the business owner, need to make sure that the things that you're sharing are correct. That's on you. That's not on anyone else. Okay. And ChatGPT can straight up make things up and lie to you. It also can kind of tell you that it can do things that it can't do. This is what I did not know. I knew it could give you false facts, but I spent forever when it was helping me with something. It was like, do you want me to put that in a Google Doc for you? And I was like, that would be so great. So it gives me this link. I don't even know. I don't think it was more than like 20 minutes. I didn't spend like a ton of time on it, but I think I spent a solid 20 minutes trying to figure out why I could not open this Google Doc. And like, I think you need to give me a new link. I think like something's wrong. Like, and we just kept going back and forth. Never once did it say, I'm not capable of doing this. It just kept saying, yeah, oh yeah, it's this. Here you go. Here you go. Oh, here's what you need now. And eventually I caught on and I stopped and I said, wait, are you capable of doing this? And it was like, oh, you're right. I'm not. so, so just remember, it can straight up lie to you about things. Okay. So you just need to really be mindful of that. And if it's ever trying to do something and it's just not working, it's probably telling you it can do that when it just can't. Next thing. It can give you things that sound really good, but they're super generic and won't do anything for your business. This is a trap. I kind of touched on this earlier, but you can read through and you can go in there and say, hey, I sell earrings. Can you give me some good social media talking points? And it probably can, but are they the right talking points for your brand, for your ideal client? Probably not if you didn't tell it about your brand and about your ideal client. So remember that there can be a lot of things that it gives you that sound really good. And you can read through and say, wow, that sounds great. And I never thought to talk about that. And like, I should use this. This is so good. You always need to take that step back and say, is this right for me and my business and my people? Is this specific enough? Is this personal enough? Is this really what they need? Is this something that would be good, generally speaking, for someone who sells earrings, but not right for my business, right? Like if it was diving into like what the materials that the earrings are made out of and all that kind of stuff. But if we go back to that example of the very connection story driven earrings business, those people don't care as much. I mean, they probably want to know what the materials are just so that they know that it's not going to infect their ears, but like that's not the kind of content they want to see on social media or that your business should be doing. But ChatGPT would probably tell you to do that because yeah, it's a good idea, generally speaking, for an earring business to talk about those kind of things. So I hope you see where I'm going with this. You need to use your own discernment to ask, is this the right fit for my business? Is this the right direction? Because it's going to give you things, but then it's up to you. It's just the tool. It's the tool. You run the show. You're the driver. You're the business owner. You need to make the decisions. So just remember that we don't want generic stuff that sounds great. That's not going to get you anywhere near as far as those personal stories and those personal connections. Next thing you should know is that you can and should push back on what it's saying. And this is one of the things that I find I like about it. I'm such a people pleaser. And I I don't I'm trying to think how I want to say this. I won't make a decision that's wrong for my business just to please someone else, but I will oftentimes not get the feedback I'm looking for because I'll try and ask for feedback and then someone says something and it's not what I'm looking for, but I don't want to hurt their feelings and I know they went out of their way to help me. And so I'm not trying to be like ungrateful. I want to I want them to feel that I'm grateful that they took time to give feedback on what I'm asking. You know what I mean? So it becomes this weird loop where like sometimes I ask for feedback from humans. What I get is not very useful, but I don't feel like I can tell them that. And I feel like it would be inappropriate or needy for me to say, that's not what I want. Try again. Like you people that are just doing me a favor. You know what I mean? So with ChatGPT, when it gives me something, I can say, I don't like that at all. Try again. Or I can say, I only like this one. Can you do more in that direction? Like, let's say we're brainstorming and it gives me options. I will very often say, I like option 2 and I like option 7. Can you keep those and give me a few more in that same direction? And you're refining, you're telling it where to go. You are running the show. Remember, we're not just saying, okay, ChatGPT, give me this. And then, okay, I guess I should pick one of these. I don't really love any, but I don't know, whatever. You're in charge. So if it gives you options, I really like to have it help with naming things. Naming can be such a struggle. So if you're in there and saying, hey, I need help with names, what can you give me? And it gives you 10 names and you don't like any of them. You don't have to just pick one of those. You can say, I don't like any of those. But what you do want to do is give it something to work with. You don't want to just say, I don't like any of those, start over. That's probably not going to give you much better results. What you want to do, like we've been talking about, how your input matters, what you want to do is say, I don't like any of these. I want something that's a bit more XYZ. I want something that really grabs the attention of people who think this, or I want it to be really short, or I want something a little funnier, or whatever, right? There's the more direction that you can give it, the better output you're going to get and the more useful that output's going to be. And then again, like I said, you can say, I like number 3 and number 4. Give me a few more that are like that. Okay, from here, I like these two. Is there a way that that could be combined? Or, anything else? And it'll say, okay, how about this or this or this? And you'll say, ooh, that's the one. That's the one I really like. But you're running the show and you need to you're the one that should be telling it, these aren't right, or I don't like those, or I want to go a completely different direction, or these are wrong because this, and I want the focus to be on this instead, or whatever. That's your responsibility, and you can and should do that, and it will greatly improve what you're getting back. Okay, and then the last thing in this little section of what you should know to watch out for, like I talked about, if you don't want people to know that you're using ChatGPT to have you write things, there's a couple, and I think if you head out to Google, you can find these as well. I don't know all of them off the top of my head. I think the more that you play around with it, the more you'll start to recognize when something is written by it. It just becomes more obvious because there's patterns, there's tells, there's things that consistently it does. A big one. It's called the M dash, that long dash that it puts in the middle of a sentence where most people would probably use a comma. That is a very, very obvious one. And I've noticed this one even with people who are using my prompt buddy GPT, where, maybe it gave them a suggestion for a hook and it included one of those M dashes and they copied it as written. And it's not a big deal, but they had never used that M dash in their life. So it's very noticeable to me that they got that when they were using the prompt buddy. And so that's a big one, is that dash. If you have AI write anything for you, it's probably going to put that stupid dash in there. And I've even told mine, I don't use this dash. Anytime you would want to use that dash, please use a comma instead. It still uses it. It's still, like, I have directly told it so many times, it still uses it. I don't know why. It's gotten better. It uses it less since I've specifically told it, but it still uses it. So that is a very obvious one, that long dash in the middle of a sentence. Take that out. If you don't want people to know that you use AI, I think you should take it out either way, even if you're not trying to hide it, if you were not someone that's ever used it before. If you have never put that dash in a sentence in your life, take it out. It's off-putting to people. It sends up that red flag of like, they didn't write this. This doesn't sound like them. What's going on here? So that's a really big one. There's the way it will use questions. So this is a tricky one for me because I actually have 2 different people that are longtime members of my membership and good friends of mine who speak this way normally. They were doing this long before ChatGPT. So that's why it's tricky because, ChatGPT speaks like humans do. Like some of these things that it's adopted is because people really do it in real life, but then sometimes it really runs with it a little bit too far. But an example of this could be something like, I used to feel XYZ and now, question mark, I feel blah, blah, blah. Now, like I said, I know real life people that do this, and they do this when you speak to them. They do this when you speak to them in Messenger. Like this is their normal speaking pattern. But for a lot of people, it's not your normal speaking pattern. And ChatGPT is notorious for putting this kind of structure into things that it's writing. So you'll be reading and you'll notice that it's kind of the same thing. The same thing with this, not that. ChatGPT loves that kind of structure. So if it says something like, you think it's this, but it's actually this, that's another clear tell to a lot of people that are kind of immersed in this world that ChatGPT probably wrote it. And again, it's tricky because you might genuinely be writing that way, and that's why I don't want you to stress too much about this. But these are just some of the obvious things that you'll notice. Sometimes emojis can be a little bit weird, but I haven't had too many issues with the emojis. I told it to use my dynamo emoji for pretty much everything, and it does. And then I gave it my two little hearts too. And so it uses those other than random emojis for me because I've trained it to do that. But there's lots of little things that just the sentence structure is different than how you would say it. That wording is not a word that you would use. There's lots of little things that make it obvious to people that you used AI to write something. And again, you get to decide for yourself if you care about that. Well, first of all, you get to decide for yourself if you want to have it right for you or if you want to just use all of these other ways that I've been talking about here. But then once you decide if you want to have it right for you, you also decide if you care or not. If you want to be loud and proud about, yeah, I use AI and here's why. Or if you want to try and disguise it a little bit more, then those are some things that you want to watch out for. So I don't think there's a right or wrong there, but those are things that I think you definitely just want to keep in mind that do tend to make it obvious. And you'll notice this more and more. You'll notice the same patterns. I don't know if any of you, I have this weird addiction to the Reddit Am I the Asshole posts where people like share something that happened in their personal life and people weigh in on like if they were wrong or the other person was wrong or whatever. There are so many people that now use AI to write them, and I don't really understand. I don't know. It's weird. I don't understand like any weird scam behavior like this on social media. Like, what is your life that you have time to do this? Do you want to come watch my son? Do you want to come help? I don't like I have plenty I could put you to work doing. There's so many trees I need cut down in my backyard. Like there's plenty I could help you doing rather than writing fake posts to share on Reddit. I don't understand. But what I will say is that I can tell that a ton of people are using them because now they have the same structure. They'll go through and then at the very end it'll say, and now all my friends and family are divided. Some are messaging me this, some are like they always end with the exact same format. And it's like, okay, clearly AI is doing this because there's no way that all of a sudden all these humans adopted the exact same structure when they weren't using it previously, right? Like it's noticeable when you're looking for the patterns. And again, whether you care if people notice or not, that's up to you. The other thing you want to look at is who is your audience because I've had to remind people of this a lot. I work with other business owners. My business is B2B, business to business, but most of the people that I work with are B2C, business to consumer. They aren't selling to other business owners. I mean, other business owners can buy from them, but that's not their like target demographic. So trends and things hit the B2B world faster than B2C. So if you're listening to someone who is like a coach that coaches coaches, they are probably talking a lot about B2B and things that might be happening here, but they haven't started happening in the B2C world yet. I hope this is making sense. I have all these acronyms. Is acronyms the right term there? I hope it's not too confusing either way. So just because a lot of people in the business world are using AI for business and recognize these tells, if your audience is not other business owners and your audience doesn't really use AI, they would probably not recognize these things in the same way. You also kind of have to look at your audience. And different audiences have different feelings about using AI in your business as well. So that's the other thing that you want to be mindful of is how open do you want to be about it? How much do you want to talk about it? That's really going to depend on you. And that's also going to depend on your audience. Okay. Now, my last little section here are just kind of some rules. And I believe I've probably touched on all of these as I went because I can't help myself, but just a nice little collection of, and I hesitate to say rules because, like I said, there are no rules. You really get to decide here. But these are my personal rules for ethical use of AI that I adopt for myself, and I also encourage you to adopt for now. So, okay, the first one, use it to speed you up and to reduce your mental load, not to replace you. So remember, you are ultimately still the business owner. These are tools that can help you, but you don't want it to take over. You don't want to find yourself saying, well, I don't really like this, but ChatGPT came up with this, or this is what it said. That's no, 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 no. Stop right there. Okay. That is not how we want this to be going. It's here to speed you up. Could I sit down and write out my own podcast show notes? Yep, I can. And I did that previously. And sometimes I do still. Sometimes I either just like the transcript got messed up and I can't give it to ChatGPT, or I'd rather just write it myself. Or I've had, I've been doing this for how many, like 5 or 6 episodes now. And I think at least one or two, I didn't like what it wrote and I just wrote it myself anyway, So, um, but it speeds me up. And the reason why I'm okay with it writing the show notes for me, like I said, is because it's using my original content, it's using my words. If ChatGPT wrote the episode for me, and then I asked it to write show notes based off the outline that it got for me, that would feel weirder to me because it would all be coming from ChatGPT. I come up with my own episode topics. I come up with my own episode outlines, and then I speak. I don't write. I don't read from a transcript. I mean, you can probably tell, right? So I'm not the biggest fan of there's actually 2 podcasts I listen to that have said that they write out and read from a transcript, and it's not my favorite, but I do still like what they talk about, so I still follow both of those. But for me, the episode itself is completely original content from myself. So then I feel okay handing that to the AI tool and saying, can you pull show notes out of my own words? So that's where I kind of feel is the difference there. And again, you get to decide for yourself how you feel about all of this. But I think it's here to speed you up and to reduce your mental load. Could I write my own show notes every week? Yes. Is it is there a reason why it would be more beneficial for me to do that as opposed to letting ChatGPT do it? In my opinion, not really. I think ChatGPT can be more objective with something like show notes. I think that I get in my own head and get biased about like what I think is the most important part or what I want to call it, but it can be a little bit more objective and kind of look through, not data, but like look through the content that I created and pull out what are the important points and pull out things that might be a little more SEO friendly than I maybe could. So, it reduces my mental load around my podcast, but it does not replace me in any way. How many of you even read those show notes? Hardly anyone, right? So that's another reason why I feel okay with it. I would never let ChatGPT do the podcast episode for me. To me, if I got to a point, I heard someone talking about how she was saying she has varying energy levels, and I can kind of understand that a little bit more, but she was basically saying I go into ChatGPT, it brainstorms me an episode idea, then it brainstorms the notes, and then I have it write out a transcript, and then I have it use my AI voice clone to record, and then I publish, and then it writes the show notes. And I'm like, I hate that so much. I don't remember her name. I'm not trying to put this person on blast by any means. Like, do you in your business. As long as you're open with your audience about what you're doing and they're okay with it, then, do you. I would never want to listen to a podcast that was completely created by AI in that way. Like, why do you even have a podcast? What's the point of it if you don't want to if you don't want any of it to come from you? That's my feelings about. There are so many people saying, "Oh, I could have AI, it could do this, it could do that, it could start this thing for my business." And I'm just like, "Okay, I hear you, but I think they should be your support team, not running the show. And if there's something in your business that you don't have the time for and would completely be coming from AI, my personal opinion is don't do it right now until you have the time for it." But again, that's my opinion. Okay, you run the show. You make the decisions. I've been harping on this a lot, but I think it's really important. You don't want to wake up one day and say, "What is happening to my business? I feel like ChatGPT somehow got me here." Like, what happened? You run the show. You're the decision maker. You are the business owner. ChatGPT is a tool, but it's up to you to decide what's right for you and what's not. Use ChatGPT to give you options, but then you pick the ones that are right for your business, not letting it run the show and make the decisions for you. Okay. I think this is really, really, really important. I probably brought it up a bunch of times, but I just really feel strongly it's here to assist you, but you are still in charge. You need to be running the show. Next thing. Ooh, I didn't touch on this one yet. I'm glad I put this on this list. Again, these are my rules for ethical use of AI, so you can agree or disagree, but don't use AI to teach things you aren't qualified to teach. I feel like that should be pretty straightforward, but I just know that there's already people doing it, right? There are certain things that you're like, "Oh, it would probably help my people, or it'd be kind of cool if I could talk about this, but I don't know enough, so I'll just have ChatGPT whip something up and share it." No, only if you wouldn't know how to teach something on your own without ChatGPT, I don't think you have any business teaching it. What I mean by that is ChatGPT can help you organize. It can help you make a plan. It can take like a chaotic jumble of information and create a clear workflow and lesson plan for you, but it should not be giving you the content. You should not be teaching things that you don't know enough to teach on your own. And that's one of the dangers, I think, of AI is that it can help you do that. You could go in there and say, hey, help me create a course on this, or help me create a workshop on this, or even like a freebie on this. I just, yes, there are certain things that probably could benefit your ideal client that you don't know enough about, and ChatGPT could help you. But why? Just let them learn it from someone who is qualified. You don't need to be everything to everyone. You don't need to be all things to all people. And the more that you water yourself down, especially like, what if you did that and then someone was really underwhelmed by it and you didn't even create it yourself? And like, I have lots of thoughts around this, but this is a hard line for me personally. Don't use AI to try and teach things that you aren't qualified to teach. Okay. This is a kind of a different one, but I think another really important one. Things are changing really fast with AI, and you are not obligated to keep up with all of it. There's so much out there, and there's people, I just learned about custom GPTs not that long ago, and now there's people, especially people that are like really super immersed in AI in the business world, who are like, I don't even want GPTs anymore. I just want this. I want these instructions. Like it's so fast. It's a lot. And it's very overwhelming to try and keep up with it all. You do not need to keep up with it all. You don't even need to use it at all yet. If it's not the right time for you, you don't. I think that it's a really great tool to, like I said, speed yourself up, allow you to do more without burning out. That's what I think is the best value of AI. It allows you to get a little bit more done and get it done faster without having to take up so much of your own mental energy and leaving you too depleted to, go and enjoy your life. I think it's an incredible tool when it comes to that. But there's so much, and feeling like you have to keep up with all of it is a lot. And if I hear one more person say, if you don't use AI, if you don't embrace AI, you're going to get left behind, I'm going to scream and throw my computer out the window. You are not going to get left behind, okay? You are coming at your own pace. And every business is different, and your audience might not even want you to use AI right now or ever. Okay. So don't let those people get in your head. If it's a hard no for you, that's okay. There are things that would make my life easier, but I don't want to do them. And that's okay. You don't ever have to do anything that just your whole body is screaming, don't do this. Okay. But there's a lot of pressure to feel like you have to adapt AI and that you have to run at the speed of light and keep up with all of it. And now there's this and now there's that. And oh, there's this new thing. And like it's very overwhelming. So take what works for you. The way I like to, well, this is how I like to explain my membership, but I think it applies here as well. Think of it like a buffet. There's so much stuff when you walk into a buffet. You cannot eat it all. You couldn't. Like maybe you could have the smallest bite of each thing, but like you can't eat it all, right? So, um, you pick and choose what you want today. And maybe the next time you come back to the same buffet, you'll get a completely different plate. Maybe you'll be in the mood for something different. What do you need right now? What's going to serve you best? What do you want right now? That's what we want to be focused on. Last thing. Oh, I kind of already talked about this, but decide where you do and don't feel comfortable using it. It's up to you. So, I have given you a ton of different ways that AI can be used. And like I said, this is by no means comprehensive. There are so many other ways people are using it that is so cool that I probably have never even thought of. And, I probably will continue to find new ways to use it. But for now, this is really what I'm doing. And I want you to decide for yourself where you do and don't feel comfortable using it. So for me, I do feel comfortable brainstorming. I do feel comfortable making decisions. I do feel comfortable having it take a piece of my content and then do what basically like a virtual assistant human could do with it. I'm totally fine with that. I don't want to turn around and have it start writing a bunch of things for me. I will, just to be completely honest with you, I've sent, I don't know, maybe like two emails where I was really tired. I had really been working on the thing with ChatGPT a lot. It wrote an email and genuinely it is basically what I would have wrote. And so I made a few tweaks and sent out the rest. And even after that, I was like, man, I wish I had wrote that whole thing myself. But I have a toddler and I'm exhausted and I have very little time. And so every now and then something like that, I'm personally okay with. But I always have to check in with myself and say, like, am I okay with putting this here? If it's something that helps me write that's going to go like on a sales page, which tends to be a bit more formal than my other writing style anyway, I might be a little bit more okay with that too. So finding those places where you do and don't. But a good example of this kind of goes back to the AI photos like I was talking about. I personally probably would be okay. I played around with these a little bit and a lot of times you have to have a paid account to do it. And so I haven't decided if I care enough to pay to try and get AI photos of myself. I think when I create my new website, like I've been talking to you guys about, I'm procrastinating and not getting there just yet. But I think when I do that, there is a chance that instead of paying for a photo shoot of fresh photos, that I will instead maybe try out some AI photos and see how they turn out. Because, like I said, for me, that's where I feel it's okay. Because I feel like the me that you would see in a professional photo and the me you would see in an AI photo, they're obviously not the same, but neither one is like a fully like accurate representation of what I look like in my normal life either. So that's where I'm kind of okay with it. But on social media, I will not unless it's something really funny. Like if it's like me running with a dinosaur and like that kind of thing where I'm like, look at this fun AI photo, but I would not just put like an AI selfie on Facebook. That's just not, I would not do that. I would just take a selfie. So, finding for yourself what you do and don't feel comfortable using it for. Another example, like I said, to try and mitigate the environmental impact and my own personal contribution, which I still am wrestling with a bit, but I just realized I can't avoid it. Even when I do Google search, half the time it uses Google AI, right? Or even if you try and if you need a customer service thing with a company, they're going to force you to speak to their AI agent first most of the time. Like, even if we want to not touch it, it's kind of impossible already. And I think that's just gonna more and more and more keep happening, right? And so I finally was like, I think I should lean into how can this help speed me up and reduce my mental load if it's not going anywhere, whether I use it or not. But deciding for yourself where you do and don't feel comfortable, deciding what your boundaries are, and remembering they can always change. Like, if you are very unsure and uneasy about AI, and right now you're like, I'm going to kind of touch it, but I don't ever want it to write something for me. And 3 months from now, you've been playing with it a lot and it writes something and you're happy with it. And you're like, oh, man, I kind of want to use this, but I said I would never. Like, you can always change. Okay. You can always change your opinions. So just remember that too. But just decide for yourself where you do and don't feel comfortable using it so that you can stick to that up front and make sure that you're using it in a way that's in alignment with your own values and your own opinions and just what feels important to you in your own business. So, okay, thank you for sticking it out with this long episode. I hope it has given you so many things to think about. If you want to dabble a little bit with AI, if you're like, I'm kind of intrigued, but I don't really know what to do with this, I would encourage you to try out either of the custom GPTs that I have built. So actually at this point, you should wait because I'm going to do the October content prompts and do an October GPT along with it. So that would be a really great way for you to try it out. Or I would also really love for you to come into the business reset week and go through my business reset. So if you're feeling like you just really need to hit that big old reset button on your business and that you have fallen way off and things just, man, like so much that you want to do, but you just don't ever seem to do it. And you just really need to get back on track and you're just frustrated with yourself. That's exactly what this business reset is designed for. It's going to take you through my take on planning and goal setting, all the mindset stuff that's the reason why you're still stuck in this place. That I know that a lot of times we don't want to look at the mindset stuff, but truly, if you have a plan and you're not following it, it's either a bad plan or it's mindset. And the business reset is going to cover both. Oh, I should write that down and maybe use that on the sales page or something. But it's true. You either have a bad plan or it's mindset stuff. And both of those are included when you go through this business reset workbook. Then it helps you create your action plan of all areas of your business, your content, your mindset, your personal growth, your audience growth, your network, like all of these are included in there. And then it helps you build a schedule that's actually going to work for you. This isn't just everyone build this exact same schedule. It really walks you through how to build a customized schedule that fits you and your life and your energy levels and all of those things. So I'm super excited to take people through this, and it will give you a really great chance to dabble a little bit and play with a custom GPT that I have built and that I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into. Let me just tell you, I thought it was going to be nice and quick to go through and get it all created. I actually told someone I'd have it done last Thursday, and that she could test it out for me if she wanted to. Now it's Monday and it's still not done because it's been a lot of a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but I'm so thrilled with how it's turning out. It's so worth it. It's so good. It guides you through everything in the way that a PDF just can't. It, instead of just saying, okay, let's pick your big and little content umbrellas, it's like, okay, here's what those mean. Here's some examples. Here's what you have so far. Here's what, it's so good. Okay, I need to cut myself off now because I'm just going to ramble and ramble and ramble about how great it is. But those are some really good ways that you can try out. And if you're a little bit more of an advanced user, I hope that maybe this has given you some other ideas of things that you can possibly consider trying out. So I would love to hear your thoughts on AI. I'm, whether you agree with me or not. And my goal with this was not to make you agree with me. It was just to help you see my perspective and then help you kind of open your eyes and examine your own perspective. So I hope you'll try out this tool if it's something that you are intrigued with. Don't get overwhelmed. When you first open it up, it feels like a lot. And that's why, and actually when I first started using it, I was using a custom GPT that the person who runs the membership I belong to built. And it helped me a ton because when I would just open it and just look at the blank screen and like, what do I even say to this thing? I don't know. I got so overwhelmed. So that's another really great reason to start with maybe a GPT that someone else has built. But you can totally start. Just go in there and start telling it about yourself, start telling it about your ideal client, your business, and ask it for help with one task and see what it can do for you. And start to slowly try it out for other things more and more over time. You don't have to do all of this tomorrow, but I think that it's just a really cool tool, and you're never going to hear come out of my mouth like you have to use it or you're going to get left behind. But what you are going to hear come out of my mouth is a lot of times we resist the things that could make our lives easier. And for why? Why do we do that to ourselves? So I encourage you to try it out and see for yourself what you think of it. And don't just ask one generic question and say that sucked and I'm never doing that again. Because that's kind of what I did and then wrote it off. Really play around, take to heart some of the things I talked about here and decide for yourself if this is for you or not. And if it's not, that's okay. But if it is, then just decide, where and how do I want to use this in my business? And just remember, it's going to get better and better and better over time, which is really cool. So, all right. Thank you for hanging out here. I hope to see you in the Business Reset Week. But if not, I hope that you'll at least go give it a try. And I would love for you to tell me if this changed your perspective or taught you something new that it could do, or even if you just started using it for the first time. So, all right. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week. I hope this episode inspires you to go take action on something you have been overthinking. As much as I wish you could, you cannot think your way to success, so promise me you're going to go take some action today. Head over to overthinkingentrepreneur.com to find all the cool stuff I've made for you over the years, like my free guide to getting more social media engagement and my Facebook group, Dynamite Entrepreneurs, which has a free course on social media basics.